So we have a really cool panel today and going to be joined by 4 women that we're really excited. I'm going to have them do a quick introduction. And we're going to be talking about how we're reshaping AI in marketing and advertising. So if you guys just want to briefly introduce who you are, where you work, what you do. We'll start with Dao.
Sure. Hi, my name is Nguyen. I run ad product at the New York Times.
Hi, I'm Natalia Dávila. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for GUT in the US.
Hi, I'm Maegan Buckler. I'm the SVP of Enterprise Solutions at XR Extreme Reach.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Campbell. I'm the Group Creative Director for Studio Resonate, and we're the in-house creative agency for SiriusXM.
Amazing. Okay, so to kick it off, Dao, I'm going to start with you. And it's a question that we get asked a lot by a lot of clients, and I know you live this in your advertising and marketing space. But if everyone starts using GenAI to make ads, how can brands stand out?
That's a great question. Brands, what they want most of all is to have campaigns that perform, right? And that is the most important thing. And the way that we approach it at the New York Times is that we really try to understand, it's not just about the creative, it's about who you're reaching and when you're reaching them. And so the way that we approach GenAI is that we actually have this amazing offering where we use GenAI to match, it's called Brand Match. We match a brand's RFP, brief, wishes, dreams, their ultimate desires with the content all across the New York Times portfolio, which is vast and growing, and all of the users who are going, we think, are going to be receptive to the brand's message. And what we find is that through GenAI, we're able to increase find people that brands never even thought of, to be able to, who are interested in their message. And it kind of turns the whole traditional thinking on its head because we are able to increase the reach and also increase performance. And performance is really what matters at the end. And so usually when you increase reach, your performance goes down, right? That's the general idea. But because we're able to think about, okay, your message, who's really going to be receptive to it, we can find them. And so brands see enormous lift. A sports league, so 100%, over 100% lift in CTR. And so I think that there's enormous potential for brands to get their message across.
So it's not just about the tools, it's about the data that you're bringing into it and that you guys are bringing to advertisers.
That's right.
Yeah. So another part about the role that you have in the New York Times, there's a lot of news about what's real or what's done by GenAI and how consumers feel about that. I would love for you to talk more about that. And does it matter? Why does it matter?
We think about that all the time. I read somewhere that in 3 years, 90% or more of content on the internet will be generated by a computer. And the New York Times is built on trust with the audience. And in a world where it takes seconds to make content, trust is built over decades. And I think that our readers look to not just us, but institutions, journalism institutions, to report news that is true, without fear, without favor. And that kind of trust is so important for us in this, certainly in this time of the world, but I think it is something that's ongoing. So therefore, our approach to GenAI, using GenAI, is that we use a lot of tools, amazing tools, and we want to be transparent about when we use them to the audience so that they fully understand. And all of the things that we do are reviewed by a human at the end, and that's true for reporters, investigators, product managers, coders, people who use it to increase efficiency in the advertising department. And that is something that I think is so central to the role of an organization like the New York Times.
I love that. Thank you. It's a good transition, Natalia, to you and what you guys think about with the creativity side. So when you think about new technology and bringing this into your teams, how do you have the role of the human involvement? And what does that mean within creativity?
So for us, honestly, AI has been an unlock. So we're very embracing. We're more of an experimental agency when it comes to these new technologies rather than being resistant. It's how can it unlock opportunities for us? So we're very embracing of it across the board and experimenting with new applications, particularly for creativity. The biggest thing that we've been using it for is more than producing creativity, it's actually data processing. So it's really unlocking opportunities that our teams could never have processed just themselves. So things like AI personas, we're creating those kinds of tools that help thread all these different pieces of information from qualitative research, quantitative research, internal commercial data, so that we can then become the prompters ourselves. Before, we were relying on the strategist would give some prompts to a data analyst, but he couldn't find certain insights if I didn't prompt him for it. So now that it's kind of democratized that access to data in a way that a layman like me, who might not have the data coding skills and data analyst skills, is able to actually access the data. It's actually speaking the same language as me to be able to draw these insights. So that human element comes from, one, the prompter. It's how we can draw interesting insights from the data that's coming into it. But then from a creativity side, the reality is AI is never going to replace the human experience. You know, the lived experience, what we learned from it, emotion, empathy, those are things that won't be replaced just yet. What it does allow us to do is just unlock opportunities that help us fuel that in different ways.
And do you think, to build on that there's so much around creativity that's about pushing the borders and taking risks. Do you think that GenAI is going to restrict that at all?
No, I actually think it's helping us in many ways. So for instance, at the agency, we have cultural experts who help us analyze how certain, especially if we're going into targeted communities, how the creative might resonate or sit with the public, with different specific communities. How's it actually going to land? Are we being empathetic to all communities that we're connecting with and communicating with? And so it's a lot to ask of a single cultural experts to bear all of that knowledge on them. So we actually are developing tools also that allow us to identify and spot certain things in creativity that maybe we haven't seen, because a cultural expert might not have known that single piece of information, have that exact historical knowledge of something that happened with this brand specifically. So what AI is also allowing us to do is pressure test creativity to understand, are there any spots, any challenges, any issues that maybe we hadn't seen internally, but AI is allowing us to have that kind of knowledge base there.
And anyone can jump in on this one too, but do you see that as tech continues, that there will be parts that have the human in the loop now, or you feel like it's important now, and that will start to go away? I know this is a little bit of like futurist thinking about what might change, but will you always need someone in the creative brief process, or does that change? Will you always need someone in content review, or does that start to change?
So we're a creative agency. I think if a performance agency was answering this, they'd have a different answer, and it's not a wrong answer. Our focus is on how the tools empower creativity. And we feel really strongly the creatives are integral to that process. The type of creative that we put out in the world is based on human needs, the human experience. And so from our perspective and the type of work that we create, the human always has to be part of that process. But that's not true of all agencies necessarily. And if you're creating different type of creative work that's out there. The other thing that it's doing is, rather than replacing, I think it's also just democratizing access to quality work. So we're a creative agency where advertising can be a little bit elitist and very closed off environment. And so what this is also allowing us to do, it's kind of broadening the competition. So I don't think it's necessarily removing the people, but right now the way that we're seeing it, it's really just giving access to more people to data processing and creative creation.
So switching down the line, Maegan, I'm going to go down to you. From a tech perspective, because you guys offer, maybe you can mention a little bit about what XR is, but when you think about it, what should brands be thinking about when they start thinking about what tools to use for GenAI?
Sure. So at XR, we actually hold the largest global creative asset platform. And so we have billions of ads coming through our pipes every day. And so while it's really important for us, what we're using mostly AI for right now is actually that creative intelligence, so the data around it. And then being able to actually look at things that maybe aren't the sexiest, like we're not the creatives, but it is looking at the things that are unseen. Like, is there representation in your ads, and having inclusion? And I think that goes, again, even back to your point about making the human aspect of it be really important, is that something can maybe analyze that data and analyze those spots, but it's not looking at actually making it actionable insights. And so that's what's really important for us, is being able to look across it and seeing like creative effectiveness and representation and even sustainability goals. And so I think that's what brands are really embracing, or starting to, is saying, we do need to be more intentional about what we are creating. We also have to be thinking about, other KPIs or other, aspects that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. And so I think, again, AI is not going to even take creative out of it, but it's actually fanning the flame. And so it can actually just really support it and improve it.
Chelsea, do you want to add on a little bit to that? I know you guys have been on a journey around AI and tools. Do you want to add some perspective?
Yeah, for sure. At SiriusXM, we believe in the power of the human voice, and that we stand by that with everything from the content on our platform to the ads that we're running. But it's an exciting day for us because we have announced this morning a partnership with Narrative AI. And Narrative is a partner where we can create AI-enhanced voice ads. So we're using their platform for our voice roster. We've got a voice roster of like 200 voiceover artists that we've been working with for years. And for those that choose to opt in, they can have their voice replica made using Narrative, and then we can use that to scale their participation within our audio ecosystem. So it's really good for like the SMBs, the like lower funnel advertisers who may find the lower cost, the lower barrier to entry, an easy way to create these amazing voice ads that are still going to be produced by a human. So all of the ads will be produced by Studio Resonate. And then for our larger clients, we can use this technology to help scale. Like for our enterprise clients, perhaps they want to do a dynamic campaign that's like zip code targeted, and you want to get super hyper local with the messaging. So it's a really exciting day. We shopped around with a lot of different partners, and we picked Narrative because we really stand by them when they talk about there is a role for ethical AI in audio advertising. There is full ownership and control for the voice replicas over how their voice is being used. So when a voice replica signs up, they can blacklist or they can block any advertisers or any verticals if they've got an exclusive partner or something. And then before any ad runs, they have to physically approve it. So you've still got that human in the loop. And Narrative, we're really excited that they're our partner for this because they put the morals out there. They're really standing by what they believe in. Yeah, it's a real synergy. Oh, sorry, I said synergy, everyone. But it's a really good partnership.
Well, and you're hitting on something too that's been a little bit touchy, right? When it comes to artists and GenAI. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel like your community has felt about introducing something like this?
Yeah, so we have approached it really sensitively. We actually sent a questionnaire out to everyone in our voice roster, and these are personal relationships that we have. We have someone on our team who is personally responsible for all of these, and we weren't sure how they would respond, and we didn't have an intention or ulterior motive when we sent it out, but some people reacted so warmly. They were like, yes, we don't know how we want to thoughtfully move into this, but we see that you are being thoughtful and considerate about it, and we want to follow your path. And then other voiceover artists didn't want to be a part of that, and that's fine. We're still continuing to work with them. So it's an opt-in. I think for creatives, on the creative team at Studio Resonate, we're also seeing it as a tool. We're not seeing it as a start for creativity. We're seeing it as a place to refine the creative output. So it's all about intention, and I think the role of creative leaders now, as there's so much GenAI content out there, is we've got to maintain that barrier of the quality, the standards of quality. Mm-hmm. And it's the role of creatives and creative leaders in the industry to make sure that we're not dropping that just because content is easier to produce. Mm-hmm. We've got to uphold our standards in this, in this age of AI. Yeah.
So I want to build on that part with trust, and you mentioned trust as well with advertisers. What have you guys faced with your internal teams? Because we also know sometimes when you roll out technology internally, it can impact just the trust of those teams. Have you guys experienced this, and what are your thoughts?
A little bit. I would say that I think for us, just in the way that we are using it, we definitely had team members that weren't sure about it, just literally in general going, well, how does that work? And so I think breaking that down and actually being very open and transparent with how we're using it and what we're using, and that has been helpful in the whole process. And then the other interesting side is just because we do work with so many brands and agencies, is some of the brands have been very much, hopefully I won't name names, of course, but saying things like, we're a family-owned company, we do not believe in AI. And I'm like, okay, understandable, and that is an opinion, that is a point of view. And so for us, I think then, just being very respectful of that to make sure that they understand that we then will hold ourselves to not using that AI for their assets very specifically, because we would never want to, put ourselves at odds with them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, at the New York Times, we especially in the tech organization where I work, we encourage a lot of experimentation, using, playing around. That's the best way. It's like play around with the different tools. We have a lot of different tools that we suggest, and then we have demos where it's like, oh, here's things that I've done, here's things that I've done, my team has done. And you can see people getting more and more into it. And like that's definitely the best way. I mean, like if you don't have an AI boyfriend right now, like are you gonna buy it?
No, from the experimental side, that's a big part of our kind of ethos. And the creatives, I will say, have been incredibly hungry and excited by it. And in general, with tech tools, when we've introduced things that kind of empower and unlock different things, like Insights Generator, we work with Prompt is something that we created that's just kind of a spark tool for creatives when you have a creative block, that kind of thing. So there's interesting opportunities. They've been incredibly embracing. I think the biggest challenge is muscle memory. It's an entirely new tool. And so remembering these tools exist, how to use them, when to use them, bringing it into like the everyday process of creativity, that's probably been the bigger challenge than general resistance to it.
Well, I mean, it actually requires some change management, right? You can't just introduce it and have people embrace it. But I do like what you guys talked about, the experimentation of it, because we found if you just tell teams that they have a tool to use, it may not be as embraced as well as you get to experiment, see how it changes your job and what you're doing.
We actually we've been running experiments for 2 years. We've been doing implicit and explicit testing, and we've had our internal creative teams. We divided them up. We had a hybrid team, we had a human-only team, and then we had an AI-only team, and we were creating audio ads and then testing them across those different versions. And we found that it was great for the internal creative teams to understand how to use it and then see the output from the AI-only, and then the results we got were very interesting. The human team won on trust and positivity. The voice ads that we created were received better, but there was actually a slight, increase for the AI team in lower funnel performance marketing. And that was really good for our creatives to see just like, where do you lean into your creativity as a human, that lived experience, that emotion, and like where does that stand out is really important, and where can you tap into the knowledge base that the LLMs have and weave that into your copywriting and your storytelling and enhance it with that.
I think there's a part to build on that, and if anyone wants to take this around creativity, where marketing agents can start bringing data from how your content's performing and bring that in. Have you guys seen that with any of your creative teams where maybe it's unlocked more data insights for them than before? Or is that not like a use case that you guys have introduced quite for your creative teams yet?
We haven't brought it in from like analyzing the performance of work and then what does that unlock for us.
Yeah.
But the data processing side, it's more around insight generation. So we're able to kind of collate all these different data sources and find threads in a way that we couldn't before. So things like I brought up AI personas before. We're not the only ones, strategists. We are the research people. But now Insight also doesn't solely rely on our knowledge, our expertise. They have access to the tools, clients have access to the tools, so they can speak to the consumer in a way that for creatives is really exciting and interesting. I'm the one who goes to focus groups, not always creatives, although we try to get them to go. But this gives them a touch point with their consumer that without AI, without this kind of tool, they would have never had that access before. So I think they feel more empowered and knowledgeable as brand stewards.
I can talk not necessarily about in the advertising world, but on the journalism side.
Yeah.
You may have heard of the Manosphere. Manosphere, for anyone who doesn't know, a loosely connected group of far-right white nationalists who put out a lot of videos, blogs, newsletters, podcasts. And who has the time or, frankly, the stomach to listen to all of that and consume all of that, right? And so our newsroom AI team put together an agent that listens to all of this content, watches all the videos, reads all the newsletters, and then summarizes for the day. This is what happened yesterday, and then the reporters can go in and read everything. and pick out the trends that they think are interesting for the readers, and then of course go back and verify that those things were said, that podcast actually said those things, and this person they will do the human verification, but it allows them to be more tapped into everything that's happening, and that would not be possible. Or
It's a great use case.
That is. I know.
People don't have to read the stuff out there now. You can have AI.
I mean, it's
do
a real
the-
mental health
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I would say.
So one more question for each of you on the panel, and we're not expected to be futurists here about what you think is going to be in 3 years, because that's even really long. But when you think about your industry, what are some ways that you think that AI is fundamentally going to change as you continue to go forward? I mean, we're already living in a lot of change right now, but what do you see in the next year or two, even feeling like you're starting to change your industry? Chelsea, maybe I'll start down there and then work my way down.
Yeah. Well, everyone's talking about agentic web and how that's the future of how we're going to be interacting with all of our devices. And I think how that's going to roll into advertising is just hyper-personalization, like we've never seen it before, like personalization squared. And that's really exciting as a creator of how we can get better messages to our listeners, to our audience. And then as a consumer, it's like, yeah, I want something that's a bit more tailored for me. But I think, it's always important to ground ourselves in like, how are we going to truly connect? And that's where the human creativity comes in, and then using AI to scale it for that hyper-personalization. So that's where I think it's important, and the human in the loop always for that creative output.
Absolutely. I think a little bit what I mentioned before, but I think that there is a lot of talk around things that then aren't actually, it's more the talk and not walking the walk. And I do feel that the industry is going to evolve and actually, really looking at that data, again, looking at these analyzed assets and looking at benchmarks across the industry globally to even, again, change the way that production is done, and even changing what goes into creative. Is it, again, that, is everybody represented? Are you really looking and trying to attract the people, every consumer or your target audiences that you're reaching for? And so I do see a lot that's going to be enhanced and improved with that, and I'm excited about that because I think it's really necessary.
From our end, honestly, we're testing out use cases all the time. It's exactly like you guys. So we're still figuring out, and we will always be figuring out what those applications are. So for us, the question is more what's not going to change, because there's so much. We have no idea what's going to end up changing. It's unlocking opportunities every single day for us. We're finding new applications. So what we're thinking about, particularly in the next couple of years, what I think we're all going to be focused on is what's not going to change in the current way of working, and then it'll enhance other things. So back to the human element, I'm going to keep bringing it back to that. It's what cannot be replicated of our human experience, and actually consciously thinking about and seeing it and experimenting, like pushing it as far as possible to what elements can be replaced of the human experience and what can't. I think we'll probably experiment in that area once we can finally unlock what won't be changing over the next 10 years, what can't be replaced by AI. That's more where our heads are at right now.
Such interesting answers. I agree with so many of you. I agree with what need to focus on what's not going to change for the New York Times. Clearly, our brand, our investment in building trust, keeping that trust, reporting the news is so critical. I totally agree with the personalization, hyper-personalization future. And this is more like a hope than like a prediction. But one thing about GenAI is that it's just not very funny. Like, it's not good at making jokes. It's just kind of flat. And like, my hope is that maybe more comics license their corpus or something. I don't know, but like, I'm hoping that it can just
Get funnier.
get funnier.
Come
on.
It can do visual ID, but it can't do tone of voice yet. I like that. It's a new use application, new use case.
Yeah, I love that too. So I guess suffice to say, big changes coming across the board. We don't exactly know what's changing, but the human is a part of it, I think, is the important note. And if I didn't make it clear enough, I think it's pretty amazing the women that we have on this panel that are leading in this industry and in your orgs. And we think about the topic of how women are reshaping. You guys are the ones on the ground that are actually doing that. So thank you for being here, and thank you for participating in the panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Everyone.